Hi, everyone, and welcome to the beach for the fall this semester. My name is Dr. Dorothy Horn. I will be giving the lecture today and sharing my screen. Here is my email in case you need to get a hold of me. This is going to be the best way. I will be checking Canvas, obviously, as well, but this is usually the quickest way. I don't check email on the weekends, just as a heads up. So this class is an interdisciplinary course, and we go over the different things that have to do with beaches in Southern California and the interactions between the people that go to the beach, the critters that use the beach, people that live near the beach, people that travel far to get there to the beach. And then we're also going to go over all the physical and biological aspects of these beaches. So we're going to look at things like climate change, human stressors, anthropogenic as human, stressors on the ecosystem. And that means, what happens when we mess up the beach, like an oil spill, right? Or our houses fall down on the beach. We're going to look at all those different perspectives depending on the beach culture and society and the history of each beach and the access to each beach, and the access to beaches in general. Through history and through time, there has definitely changed, and there are differences out there in California's beaches. So we're going to talk about that, as well as development and then sustainability. So I'm going to overview a little bit. Are you ready? So first, we're going to look at some pictures of different beaches across the world. And you may have seen some of these in California. Pocket beaches, pretty rocks, tons and tons of people, pathways down, 4th of July, oil spills, beautiful waves, tons of recreation, surfing, Santa Monica, sunsets, camping, down in San Diego, people's houses are falling in, cliffs are giving way, snowy plovers, endangered bird nests, areas that we protect, oil spills that harm wildlife that we have to try to clean up, access to beaches, private property trying to keep us out, classes in the beaches, and looking at the coastal planet. King tides, we have tides coming way up, elephant seals when you go Central Coast. Our beaches are disappearing. So this is the beach. The definition is just an expanse of sand along the shoreline and the part of the shore that's covered by the tide or the waves. So when we're vacationing at the beach, we're next to the seashore, right? That's the old song. Economic benefits, meaning like the money that we make from beaches along the coastline here in California, in Ventura County, about a little over 90% of it is sandy beaches. And LA County is about 60-ish, and the whole Southern California Bight, which is kind of, if you're thinking about looking at California on a map, a little indentation in the bottom, right below, what is the base up there? I'll think of it in a second as it curves down. So that's the Southern California Bight. It's about 80% sandy, so that's a lot, right? And if you've been to Solomar Beach in Ventura, they have the new access ramp, which is really nice. And it's one of the bigger beaches to go to. People go out to view birds and marine life, to fish, to hang out, to beat the heat. Maybe they've never been to one of the beaches, so lots of tourism. If you've ever been down to Zuma Beach, this is what it looks like on 4th of July. It's nuts. There's tons and tons of people down there. Overall, there was a great study through Beacon in 2013 showing that really people are there mostly to walk and swim. And then less people are there to look at shorebirds and fish and marine life. But that's all part of it, right? So you take your kids to play, go for a walk, you want to cool off. Maybe you're surfing, maybe you're just chilling out, maybe you're having a barbecue at the grassy area next to the beach. All kinds of ways to enjoy the beach. And it gets busy, right? I mean, we see it, especially on a hot day inland, a hot day on the coast, even, and heading out to the beach. You see tons and tons of people, right? Tons. So, what does the beach mean to you? Why do we value it if you do it all? If you want to pause for a second and think about it, maybe write it down. Why are you taking the class? Are you interested? Is it just something to do? Or have you ever really thought about how big the beach is along our coastline? Have you been to the beach? Did your family go to the beach before? Is it not something you've ever done? Is it something that you want to share with other people? Is it a scary place? Is it a cool place? What does it mean to you? Some people really love the forest and love the rivers. And as you come down from the mountains to the beach, it's all one giant connected ecosystem. So when you're coming down from the rain, right, washes down into the water, into the rivers, into the lakes, comes down the mountain, makes its way all the way out to the beach. Some people find this really peaceful. All I see is poison oak. Some people love the drier desert along the beach. You might be able to see this actually on the east side of, or really the west side of Maui in Hawaii. You'll see like a high desert-esque plain and big rocky shore along the coast. But this is actually down from, I think this is down from Baja. So you have desert that rolls right up to the ocean. And then this is a picture from California, going a little bit north, where you have the coastal dunes where the grass is and the beach is kind of headed down, sloping into the waves. You can see some surfers out there, and then around the point, I think there's some houses up there. So the beach could be a lot of different things. I'm married to a Minnesotan, so they think the beach is the lake beach, but that's not what we're talking about, right? And then we have beaches like this. And this is down in Laguna, and it's full of people and tons of buildings. And all you see is humans everywhere, right? Humans everywhere. This is called encroachment, when we are basically encroaching on the beach and taking it over with buildings and stuff. So this is just something to think about. This is an older paper, but even in California, 60% of our economy comes from tourism. Crazy, right? 60%. And over 70% of that tourism is how we employ folks across California. The rest of it is minimal compared to tourism. Tourism is huge in California. I mean, when you think about places like our destinations, maybe if you've been to Hawaii, or you've gone to another island, or another cool beach that maybe has been thought about, or down to Baja, that maybe feels like a destination. But I grew up in California. I never thought of California as a tourist destination, but it sure is. We bring in 15 billion with a B dollars a year in tourism. Almost 18 million visitors. It's a lot of money, $15 billion. It's nuts. Tourism is huge. So that means that our beaches are not only worth taking care of because we enjoy them, they're an ecological habitat, but they support California's economy. So let's kind of talk about what the beach is, right? So you have the coastal area up on the left where the dunes are, where you might see some plants or vegetation. And then you have the coastline, which is the start of what normally would be mapped as the coastline. And then you have the area called the beach, which goes all the way down to the shoreline. And the shoreline is where the water stops, right? And then as you go a little bit farther out, it's the littoral zone, meaning where the sand goes. Talks about the currents and the offshore zone and how that slope affects the waves. So if there's a sandbar, etc. That's how it all affects the waves when they're big or small. We'll talk a little bit more about this as we go. You also have the backshore area and the foreshore area. So the reason that this is broken down into so many pieces is because depending on if you're an ecologist or a geomorphologist or an engineer, or maybe an oceanographer, you only possibly consider sections of this, but this is all one big ecosystem. So it's really important that when we look at the beach, we're thinking with a broader view, right? We're not just thinking about the place where we lay our towel, or maybe where the birds nest, or where the waves are coming in, or how much sand is coming down. We have to think about the whole thing because it's all one big shebang together. So I want you to look at this picture at the top, and this is Laguna Beach in the 30s, 20s or 30s. And what I want you to notice is on the left, there's just a few buildings and there are some houses. And on the right-hand side, covered on the beach is all this dark stuff. That's all kelp, or what we call wrack. So it's washed up kelp and algae. And this is a natural beach, right? So you have dunes on the left-hand side, you know, the shrubs and whatnot are holding the sand, and then the kelp washes up on shore and it actually traps the sand. It feeds the kelp flies and all the little critters, the infauna, which mean they live in the sand and eat all the yum stuff. And I know people don't like sitting next to this. And so that's why Laguna today looks like this. So if you notice, some of the big differences to start with are there's very little kelp, very little wrack, which means it's been cleared. So a lot of times beaches now are somebody takes a tractor out there and clears it because people complain and don't want to lay their towel next to kelp flies in the sand. You can also see on the left, there's a boardwalk and a park and all kinds of buildings. And so the difference here is the beach that we have now was built by an engineer, not by an ecologist. So there's a road, there's a park, they clear the icky stuff that people don't like, and that's it. But the picture on the top, you see how much more beach there is? And it's that natural sloping effect. So when it rains, the sand is going to come down from the mountain and replenish the beach. The wrack actually acts like a collection agent. It rebuilds the beach in the summer so that when the big winter waves come, we don't lose the entire beach, but that's what happens now. So, like I said, engineers, not biologists, did that. So you'll see things like this. So this is a big dredging project that happens now because we have to try to get sand out to the beaches. So you have big tractors out there sucking sand from the harbor, pushing it back out. This happens a lot down in Port Hueneme and down at Silver Strand Beach in Oxnard. Suck the sand out of the harbor and ship it down to the next beach because it never makes it there because of all the man-made things that we've built. And the beach is something that I want you to think of as dynamic or exciting, I guess, in a way. When you look down, if you've ever been able to look at sand really close, you notice there's all kinds of different stuff in there. If you ever get a chance to look at it under a microscope, it's like art. It's really cool. But underneath the sand, there's all kinds of stuff. So if you live near a warmer water place, or if you've ever been near a warmer water place, you have turtles that land on the beach and bury their eggs, you know, and that's where we get baby turtles. Along our shoreline in California, we have tons of shorebirds. See all kinds of little shorebirds pecking through there. You see that big pile of kelp, there's going to be all kinds of flies and clams and other little critters that live underneath in the sand. Now you can see a good picture. These guys are all about it. So you see all kinds of different kelp and 3 zillion flies. And then there's these little beach hoppers that look like shrimp that jump up in the air and eat other stuff. It's all kinds of craziness going on in there. You can see the marks from where the crabs and the beach hoppers have gone underneath in the sand. That's what that is. They're like little mini tunnels all underneath the sand. This is what a beach hopper looks like. It's like a scary sci-fi crab thing. It won't hurt you though, but they get pretty big. And this is really understudied. So there's not a ton of beach ecology. A lot of people study the rocky part, right? Where you see sea stars and sea anemones and really pretty stuff and mussels, or they study the dunes or the birds. But a lot of people don't study this intertidal beach zone, and that's really where I study, is a lot of the beach, the sand part and all the critter part. And so what we look at is somewhere between the water and where all the plants are. And that's what we're considering the beach. This is out on Santa Rosa Island. And you can see on the right-hand side, there is some ivy there, and that's invasive. And what that does is it actually causes more erosion. And then behind the gal that looks like she's giving the lecture, that's a native plant. And when those plants seed in the sand like that, then sand builds up around them. And that's how we get more coastal dunes. So something to consider, excuse me, is that the beaches provide protection, right? Like if you live anywhere near the beach, and you've been there and seen these huge waves, it provides protection from storms. I went to grad school in Oregon and worked on the coastline, and we had monthly tsunami drills because it was no joke. If a tsunami came, you had to like get to high ground, you know, and hopefully the beach protected as much as possible. If you're living in a warm area, like in Maui or Hawaii in general, anywhere where there's a coral reef, they protect from the waves and the storm along with the beach. You also have all these cool things called sediment storage and transport. So like I said, from the mountains to the watershed, it rains, sand comes down the river and out into the beach. The hard part is we have dammed up a lot of rivers, and so the sand gets trapped up there, or we've built harbors and it kind of gets stuck in the harbor wall. So that's why we dredge and have to move sand around. The beach also is a filtration system. So if anybody here has seen like a Brita filter or something like that, if you've ever looked inside of it, it kind of looks like sand. It's usually not sand exactly, but it's another element in there. But it filters out a lot of stuff. We have a lot of biodiversity in the sand. It's crazy how much stuff. We have the grunion that run. Anywhere that's really close in that shoreline is like a little nursery area for all the fish. You'll see all kinds of critters in the sand. The birds nest there. We have, you know, sea lions and then elephant seals a little farther north. And the birds go nuts, right? Because there's all kinds of critters in the sand. So we have tons of threats to the ecosystem. The biggest one is us, human activity. So we groom the beaches and strip the beach of all the natural kelp, which kills the critters underneath. We are developing right up to the shoreline edge. Beach nourishment, which is how we're replacing some of our beaches, but it's also really tough on the critters underneath. It smothers them, so we have to kind of figure out a balance of how to work on that. Coastal armoring, which is what you see in the bottom right-hand corner, is where we pile a bunch of rocks up against the road, and we've actually found that that causes sand to go away faster. Trash, plastics, and then climate change and sea level. Anywhere that you live near a coastline, or not, even if you just watch the news, you will notice more and more places flood, more and more places are having problems. And this is because sea level is rising. So when you're looking at the beach, you have to find a way to get in the middle of all of it. So you can't just be an ecologist and only worry about the critters. You can't just be a rec person and only want to slap your towel down where there's no flies. Making sure that you pay attention to the cultural value of each beach. You can't just pay attention to the sand movement or the oceanography part of it. And you can't just tell people to stay away, right? Even though you might want to. We have to manage all these pieces together. So when you look at the beach, and we talk about this the whole term, I want you to try to think about all four of these circles and the different values and the different backgrounds to each. Because as a beach manager, this is what you have to do. You have to come in and think about everybody's piece of the pie in a sense. We want to take care of the beach. We want to make sure the critters are okay. We want to make sure people can have fun. We want to make sure we're not excluding anybody or any certain groups of people. And then we do have to use the engineers to make sure the beach stays, right? So this is a zoomed in piece. So if you can see in the center, the sand is trapped behind that dam, which means that we don't get as much sand. Sand transports north to south close to our shoreline most of the year. The watershed and the sand shed is what's the river or the streams that come down from the mountains. Think of this as, let's see, let's do Channel Islands Harbor. Okay, we'll pretend. So there's a big break wall out there. The sand gets stuck over there. So then we have a dredge, which sucks it out and shoots it down past the base and into the other beaches. Eventually, at the end of what's called a littoral cell is a submarine canyon, something miles deep. And that sand eventually goes down into that canyon, and then we won't see it again in our lifetime. So we have these different littoral cells going down through California. And so this is the Santa Barbara cell. So it starts from Point Conception, and this is the bite. This is the bite that I was talking about earlier. So Point Conception all the way down to San Diego. We have all these different cells. So we have Santa Barbara cell is where we are, all the way down to Oxnard, then the Zuma cell, the Santa Monica cell, the San Pedro cell, and the Oceanside cell. And all that means is at the end of each one, at the south end of each one, there's that big submarine canyon. And you can see the drainage boundaries and the different rivers that would normally move sand out into the beach. If you want to think about it, depending on where you live, you can zoom in even with just with Google Earth, and you can see, is that river paved like the LA River? How does sand make it down? Does it make it down? Is there a dam? How many dams are there? Like how many dams are in the Santa Clara River? Good questions to look at, to kind of pay attention to for this term. So we talked about threats. It's a big one. This is Matilda Dam. So it's kind of up near Ojai in Ventura County. There's no particular reason for this dam anymore. It doesn't provide power. It doesn't protect anything. The reason it hasn't been taken down is because there's been so much sand buildup behind the dam. It's collected like heavy metals and toxins over the years. And so in order to, if we just opened up the dam, what would happen is all that pollution goes down and kills everything below it. And so between the ecologists and the engineers, we are working out ways to let the water out slowly, to clean it up as it goes, to make sure that we don't do more harm than good when we let that water down, and eventually the sand will keep going down. This is a picture of the paved part of the LA River. Again, engineers built this because before the LA River was paved this way, the Army Corps of Engineers went in and did this, which was great because LA used to flood. Used to flood all the time. And so they needed to redirect the water and shoot it straight out. Well, now we're in a drought and we have no water anywhere. So there are parts of the LA River which we're working on to redirect and create more of a river system. So it moves the water out, but also saves some of the water as we go. And then we have this. If any of you have seen this, this is no joke. This happens a lot now. Waves are coming right up into people's houses. Roads are going away. This is just part of Pacific Coast Highway. We just get a big storm or a king tide, and the roads just erode away. We're losing our beaches everywhere because a lot of this keeps happening. We're not catching up to the things that we've learned. So we need to take care of our beaches and take care of our ecosystems. If you want to click on this YouTube video, it's just a kind of a goofy little video about trashing the beach, which we will talk about more. And I will talk to all of you soon.